It's Friday, June 10. In the headlines, update on sexual harassment bill. Regionally, 1,300 students suspended this term in Trinidad and Tobago, and a no-confidence motion to be filed against Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. In sports, Sharika Jackson beats Elaine Thompson-Herah in women's 200 meters. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. A sexual harassment unit is to be established to investigate complaints. It's the latest move being made by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport as it works to ensure that the amended Domestic Violence Act will become a reality during the 2022-2023 legislative year. Portfolio Minister Olivia Grange gave an update in Parliament this week as she delivered her contribution to the 2022-2023 sectoral debate. There's more in this report.
In addition to a sexual harassment unit, Minister Grange says she is in talks with trade unionist Danny Roberts to set up a sexual harassment tribunal and related matters.
The tribunal is the body to hear and determine complaints of sexual harassment at the workplace and other institutions, and to adjudicate on complaints by a worker of the employer's failure to act on such complaints.
Minister Grange says so far the Bureau of Gender Affairs has assisted 200 organizations to draft their sexual harassment workplace policies.
We've also been conducting sensitization and awareness raising sessions with public and private sector organizations, NGOs, educational institutions, and other groups. This is not a simple matter, Madam Speaker. It is a serious crime. Unwanted sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and crude sexual behaviors affect quality of life by creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. No one should endure that.
The legislation addresses concerns about sexual harassment that are employment-related, occurring in institutions, or arising in the landlord and tenant relationship workplace, schools, correctional institutions, places of safety, nursing homes, medical and psychiatric facilities, among other places. Minister Grange says following Cabinet's approval, a draft bill was created with the assistance of the Office of Chief Parliamentary Counsel, which was submitted to the Attorney General's chambers for comments.
At the same time, Madam Speaker, we continue to invest in the training of first responders, including the police, justices of the peace, guidance counselors, and deans of discipline to ensure that women and men receive the appropriate responses when they make complaints of domestic violence. And you notice I said women and men. And those men who engage in domestic violence, we are also training them. We're retraining them, reorienting them so they can become agents of change.
Meanwhile, Minister Grange says the ministry is moving to establish a referral pathway for victims of gender-based violence, which will provide for coordination among entities to offer quality and essential services to victims in a timely manner. For PBCJ News, I'm Carla Thomas Hewitt.
Mayor of Mandeville and Chairman of the Manchester Municipal Corporation, Donovan Mitchell, says he might not be seeking to be re-elected when the local government polls are called. He is the sitting councillor for the Royal Flat Division. Mitchell told the press that, quote, "I am not seeking re-election when the next local government election is called. I don't know what the future holds. Probably somebody might call and say, 'Donovan, run again and do a last one.'" End quote. Mitchell, who is 55 years old, says unlike his previous move last year when he tendered his resignation as mayor but later withdrew it, he has already advised the People's National Party of his decision. Calls are being raised for governments to integrate anti-discrimination legislation to protect the more vulnerable members of society. In this particular instance, those living with HIV and AIDS. Raquel Robinson has the details.
Chair of the Country Coordinating Mechanism, Ivan Cruikshank, is raising his voice to reiterate the call for the institutionalization of an anti-discrimination legislation to, in his words, assist in the fight against AIDS and HIV.
I think there has been a call in recent times about a broad anti-discrimination legislation. We don't have time to waste, because that, in my mind, will address a number of the challenges that we have identified. And I think it's also very important for us to be able to sit down and systematically, and I'm happy that we now have a new ministry that is designed to sit down and systematically look at our legislative framework to see what needs to change. I think we need to spend some time and investment looking across the board at where those opportunities are and how we can harness those opportunities to advance our HIV response.
State Minister in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, acknowledges that the country has come a far way, but admits there is still a long way to go in removing discriminatory actions against the more vulnerable among us.
Admittedly, while Jamaica has evolved in promoting an enabling environment in order that people living with and affected by HIV have access to prevention, treatment, care services, human rights violation continues to be of concern. As a 2021 report will reveal, the verbal assault, acts of physical violence, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and privacy breaches are among the discriminatory practices that persist in private and public spaces.
At present, the Constitution of Jamaica doesn't facilitate the protection from discrimination with regards to medical ailments, with those protected being stated in Section 13(3)(I) of the Constitution as amended by the Charter. The Act states the following: the right to freedom from discrimination on the grounds of being male or female, race, place of origin, social class, color, religion, or political opinions. As the government moves forward to reduce discrimination in the country, the Disabilities Act passed on February 14 has been the only major step forward in recent years. Reporting for PBCJ News, I'm Raquel Robinson.
Get tested. That's the word from Caribbean Institute for Health Research's Professor Alafia Samuels. She says while data shows that more than 200,000 Jamaicans have diabetes, a lot of them remain undiagnosed. She has been leading the region's food and nutrition project to keep the conversation and research alive. She gives us the basics about diabetes in this episode of Living Healthy.
Diabetes happens when the hormone insulin is not functioning well in the body. What happens is that when you eat food, most of the food is broken down into glucose. And then insulin is the chemical that takes the glucose out of the bloodstream into the cells of the body, where the cells of the body use the glucose to power their activities. What happens with diabetes is that first you get something called insulin resistance. So the insulin actually goes up, but the body doesn't use it very well. And then basically at the end of the day, you're in a situation where you're not making enough insulin. And so because the sugar can't go from the blood into the cells, the sugar stays in the blood and the sugar in the blood gets very high. Diabetes can have symptoms or it cannot have any symptoms. Sometimes the symptoms are things like thirst, because of course there's all this sugar in your blood. Thirst. Sometimes people with diabetes will lose weight very rapidly because the sugar is not getting into the cells, so the cells are like starving. Pass urine very often, especially at night. Waking up at night very, very often to pass urine. Those are some of the signs of diabetes. A lot of people with high blood pressure and people with diabetes don't know that they have it because they don't go and test. So they don't know. And some of them are silent, especially hypertension. It's called the silent killer because you can have zero symptoms and your blood pressure is in the sky. And then all of a sudden you get a stroke and you say, I wonder what happened. It was so sudden. It wasn't sudden. You have hypertension over all of this time, but silent, no symptoms. With diabetes, you would tend to have more symptoms, and so you would know. But then the complications are that you get heart attack and stroke from both diabetes and hypertension will give you a heart attack and stroke, and those are leading causes of death in Jamaica.
The risk of developing diabetes is high if someone in your family already has it, but it's even higher if you don't practice healthy eating.
If you are at home and you are mixing some lemonade, you would not put 8 teaspoons of sugar in a glass of lemonade. But when you buy a soda, you are drinking 8 teaspoons of sugar. And every soda that you drink, 1 soda a day increases your risk of diabetes by 18%, right? So you have the sugary drinks causing all these diseases. The other problem with the sugary drinks is that, remember, drinks don't satisfy hunger. So if you have a drink of 500 or 1,000 calories, you're still hungry because there's no food, no substance in your stomach. So it's wasted calories. You're drinking all of these calories, but it's not counting. They are dangerous calories because, as I said to you, they cause diabetes, right? And they are empty calories because most of the drinks is just sugar and water you're paying the money for. Nothing else in there except sugar, water, and coloring. When you drink coconut water, if you ever look to see all what is in coconut water, it's about 20 different nutrients that your body needs that's in coconut water. So drink coconut water or drink water instead.
How about a few shopping tips?
When we're buying food items, things that we should avoid are basically, firstly, you should ensure that you write a list before you go to the supermarket so that when you go to the supermarket, you don't take up things that are unwanted or unhealthy per se. So one of the things you should avoid when you're purchasing your products from the supermarket is to ensure that you choose foods that are high in fiber, that are low in sodium, that are low in sugar, and low in also fat. Some of the items also that you should not pick up from the supermarket is like trans fat. All right, so these may lead to non-communicable disease such as diabetes, hypertension, and renal failure, and some sort of cancers. So you want to choose foods that are low in these ingredients, the trans fatty acid, the saturated fat. Try to choose those that are low in sodium.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
In 6 months, Jamaica and Barbados are set to become the first Caribbean territories to access a new pan-Caribbean digital settlement payment system called Carib Dollar.
Carib Dollar, an easy-to-use digital money with a stable value. Stability mostly comes from backing it by Caribbean collaterals, and it should be governed by consent of Caribbean public and private stakeholders. We'd like to call it a Caribbean Stakeholders Digital Money, so a CSDM.
Creator of Carib Dollar, Jan Schroeder, said the system would mostly be asset-backed and give stability.
It's mostly asset-backed. There's some good faith in there as well, because if Caribbean stakeholders essentially take care of the governance, and this could be central banks, this could be institutions like CTU, this could be private companies having an interest in a economically stable Caribbean. This would be give stability. Issuance would be a mix of public and private, and we propose using distributed ledger technology for sakes of safety. And it's something between centralized and decentralized because it's not one entity responsible for this digital money.
He also explains why it was good for the Caribbean to create their own token.
The alternatives we have are all dependent on the USD. So this would just be copying the same dependency of the Caribbean economies on the US dollar by using an asset which is, well, more liquid, which is the only difference. We propose something different. We propose having it backed by Caribbean assets. We propose having a peg defined by Caribbean stakeholders. So maybe a Caribbean inflation should be different from the USD inflation, just in macroeconomic terms. And this is something which should be decided in the Caribbean and not by the Fed in Washington and other people just copying the inflation rate and the monetary policy of the Fed.
Unlike Bitcoin and other digital currency, Carib Dollar would be stable and the value would not fluctuate.
It would definitely not float like Bitcoin. This wouldn't make sense. Then it would not be a stable digital money. So no, we would have to define a peg in the Caribbean, say, could be $1 for the start because everybody's used to it, or 2 or 2.7, whatever you like. But this peg could change over time, and you just define the way how it changes.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, June 9, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.14. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $122.16. The pound sterling traded for $192.57, and the euro sold for an average of $165.38. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Thursday's trading session. The JSE index declined by 1,721 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index declined by 10 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 1,703 points to close at over 300,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,384 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 104 stocks, of which 32 advanced, 51 declined, and 21 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, Caribbean Cement Company Limited, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. The following companies represent the overall volume leaders: Lascom Manufacturing Limited with over 6 million units, Main Event Entertainment Group with over 3 million units, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Glico Investment Fund was a sole security trading over 3,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Epley Caribbean Property Fund, Valley Fund, was the sole security trading over 60,000 shares. In market data for oil rose and was on track for another weekly gain, supported by solid fuel demand in the United States, although fresh COVID-19 alerts in Shanghai and Beijing curbed gains. Brent crude was up 98 cents or 0.8% at $124.05 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude rose 82 cents or 0.7% to $122.33 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, the Bahamas Union of Teachers has made a decision to reject the government's proposal on a new industrial agreement. It was the focus of a Rotary presentation by the organization's president, Belinda Wilson. More from our news.
0 for year 1, which is July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. $58.33 per month raise for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and $58.33 per month raise for July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. This is unacceptable.
According to BUT President Wilson, from 2008, an entry-level teacher's salary was set at $25,000 annually. She says compensation needs to match cost of living increases.
We've proposed 8.3%. In the first year, the government proposed 0. 8.3% would be 3 increments, so that's about $2,100. In the second year, we proposed 5.5%, which is again equates to 2 increments, which would be about $1,400, and in the third year, 5.5%, which is $1,400.
While 99% of the contract negotiations are done, it's the compensation aspect that remains untouched. While claiming teachers understand the economic climate, Wilson was very critical of government's priorities.
In St. Lucia, the possibility of implementing adjustments to the national primary school curriculum is being examined by St. Lucia's Ministry of Education. Efforts have been undertaken by local officials to engage stakeholders on the merits of introducing an evolved learning structure. This will be done through the support of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States.
The evolution of St. Lucia's school curriculum has remained in the crosshairs of local education officials. Partnership with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States through the Program for Educational Advancement and Relevant Learning, OECS POL, is hoped to see the commencement of change in instruction within primary schools island-wide. Funded by the Global Partnership for Education, the 4-year program seeks to advance progress toward the goals of the OECS education sector strategy through increased access and improved student learning in basic education, with the hope of ensuring all children can learn, including those marginalized by poverty, ethnicity, disability, and displacement. 4 main components of the initiative include enhanced quality and equity of access for early childhood education, enhanced curriculum and assessment, program management, institutional strengthening, monitoring, and evaluation.
Well, we're very pleased that the OECS continues to support us in such a significant way. We have the OECS POL happening right now, and it speaks to several components, and those include early childhood education as well as primary education. And in particular, we speak to the curriculum review as a significant part of the work that the POL is doing. It speaks to also systemic leadership and ensuring that our schools have the administrators who are well placed to lead us into the innovative ways that education is going at the moment.
In Trinidad and Tobago, over 1,300 children have been suspended from school since Term 3 began on April 19. Although there has been a decrease in school violence since police patrols were increased, the Minister of Education is now urging parents to cooperate and ensure their children are not involved in such activities. Sunin Lala has more.
Too often, the parents are not reachable, and even if you reach them, sometimes the attitude of the parents when presented with the situation involving their child leaves much to be desired.
Dr. Nian Gadsby-Dolly reiterates that the Education Ministry has no desire to suspend or expel students from schools, but will not hesitate to take action. She says the ministry cannot do it alone and makes an appeal to parents.
There is a way to do it so that we still do not work against the school administration. We can work with, we can object, we can if we have to, but a spirit of collaboration is necessary. So we're asking parents, please pay attention to your children.
Since the beginning of the 3rd term, the minister says there has been an upward trend of suspensions, with 1,318 children suspended so far in 7 weeks, 113 this week alone. She notes that serious fights have been decreasing since the introduction of police patrols, 21 in the first week alone, down to single digits for the following 6 weeks. But these fights are now taking place outside of the school environment.
So though the violence is going down in the schools, we are seeing these fights, 1 or 2 serious fights in the streets, and therefore we've asked the police, because of course the Ministry of Education does not have personnel to deal with these things or supervision of students on their way home. So we have asked the police to assist us by increasing their patrols in all districts.
Staying with Trinidad, a joint trade union movement plans to move a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and his administration. President Ansel Roger describes the action as one of the main highlights of the activities planned for Labor Day celebrations set for June 19. He says the recent retrenchment exercises in the workplace is one of the reasons for the planned action.
Increased taxation, burden on the population, and so on. No labor legislation for the past 7 years coming to the parliament. And of course, the disrespectful, unacceptable offer of 2% for some 8 years, and all the zeros in between.
In sports, Sharika Jackson upset the field in Thursday's Rome Diamond League women's 200 meters, beating compatriot Elaine Thompson-Herah. Jackson won in a season's best 21.91 seconds, with Olympic champion Thompson-Herah finishing second in 22.25. Jamaican triple jumper Sabrina Allen has been slapped with a 4-year ban. Her sanction comes as a result of information from the first case to be prosecuted under a new law designed to criminalize widespread doping conspiracies. The retroactive ban for 27-year-old Allen, who now lives in Georgia, was announced by the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency on Thursday. Allen tested positive for 2 prohibited substances after finishing first at a low-level event in California last May. Evidence for the case came from a criminal case against Eric Lira, a naturopathic doctor from El Paso, Texas. In January, federal prosecutors charged Lira with providing performance-enhancing drugs to athletes, including Nigerian Olympic medalist Blessing Akubere. Former West Indies cricketer David Holford was laid to rest on Thursday in Barbados. Several Barbados and West Indies cricket legends and officials, past and present, joined family members and friends at the ceremony. Among the mourners was his cousin, Sir Garfield Sobers. Holford was an all-rounder who played 24 test matches between 1966 and 1977. After his playing days, Holford was also a Windies team manager and selector. In giving the eulogy, which involved inputs from legends like Sir Charlie Griffith, Sir Wes Hall and Sir Clive Lloyd, friend and former Barbados Cricket Association administrator Philip Nichols said Holford was a thinker and a leader.
His record speaks for himself, and even though at times I'm not allowed to detail them, his winning of 6 regional titles in the 70s as captain of Barbados, 2 knockout cups, and the several titles for his beloved Spartan attest me to this. He had an acute cricket brain, which long after his playing days, when he was watching games, you could see ticking over like a chess master plotting his next move to lead to the downfall of an opponent. When his concentration was fixed on something, that was his only focus, and he would maintain that focus until the problem was solved. In some respects, he was a hard taskmaster, never one who stood for indiscipline or slackness, on or off the field. He nonetheless was a fair man who led his troops into battle and was willing to stand up for them.
Holford passed away last week at the age of 82. Selectors have named 3 uncapped players in a 12-man squad for the first home test match against Bangladesh to be played at the Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua from June 16 to June 20. The uncapped players are wicket-keeper batsman Devon Thomas, left-arm spinner Gudakesh Moti and fast bowler Anderson Phillip. Phillip was in the squad throughout the recent Apex Test Series victory against England, but is yet to make the final 11. The squad includes 3 Jamaicans, batter Tajnarine Chandapal and fast bowler Sharman Lewis, who have been selected as reserves. Experienced fast bowler Kamar Roach is to undergo a fitness assessment as he recovers from an injury sustained in the English County Championship with Surrey. If he is past fit, he will be included as the 13th player in the test squad. All-rounder Jason Holder remains unavailable in his request for a period of rest and recovery. It's the weekend, and that means our entertainment reporter is here to give us the scoop. Hey, Alicia.
What's up, girl? On this week's entertainment recap, we have a lot of giving back. Atlanta Carnival was a hit, and it was lit. Shakademus and Pliers, certified gold. Birthday shout-outs, new music, and a whole heap more. So join us this Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on PBC Jamaica for entertainment recap with your girl, Alicia. Big up you!
Be sure to check out the entertainment recap on Saturdays at 8 p.m. And that's the news on PBC Jamaica. Remember to follow us on all our social media pages at PBC Jamaica. Pleasant viewing.